legalisefreedom.com. Why are we here? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
What it is to live, what it is to be born, to live and die as a human. I mean, what a trip that is.
What we observe in the universe is a kind of a secondary reality. It's a manifestation.
Now, whether we are under a phenomenal illusion of brain or whether the brain is a phenomenal illusion of mind, people need to feel free in their minds.
It has managed to sustain the illusion that we can keep on driving to the Walmart forever. I emphasize that it's an illusion.
Looking towards the future, we have to look at the next generation which is going to come in. All these systems are really out of date.
The truth of the matter is that the banking system is perhaps fatally damaged. The functions of the financial markets have been fatally compromised because the interventions and actions of the central banks have destroyed the main function of financial markets.
The interest in spiritual Gnostic thought is growing. People are looking seriously into these fields for liberating insights, pearls of worth, jewels of regard.
So the best we can say is that militant atheists are people who are psychologically dissociated from certain aspects of their psyches. They are disconnected from the deeper, more obfuscated levels of consciousness from which certain experiences arise that others with difficulty and limitations describe in religious terms. Atheists are basically people who are slightly more blind than others and are not aware of it.
Quantum mechanics was all dreamt up by people, many of them who were quite romantic, like Heisenberg. It appears to undermine the Einsteinian universe.
It was pretty life-changing for him, and I wanted to also have the same type of experience. There were techniques that we could use to self-initiate an out-of-body experience. Opened up a whole new world, opened up a whole universe, and it was incredibly exciting.
This idea that the human mind is connected to the cosmos is the most dramatic inheritance from the world of magic. It is because it is an inheritance from the world of magic that mainstream so-called science resists it so profoundly. The Lord's Prayer says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." The Hermetic tradition says, "As above, so below."
You have to understand that although we, in this kind of like post-Richard Dawkins era, we've been very much had science removed from spirituality. In the early 20th century and the late Victorian era, technology was seen as complementary to the supernatural world, to the occult.
We do live in a society in which an enormous amount of faith is put on technology to provide a solution to any problem that we identify. One problem with that is that not all problems have a solution.
The notion that we can affect the universe through thought, that somehow things that happen out there are the result of changes in the spiritual dimension. Very, very interesting.
People are totally identified with the ego in the physical world. The vast majority of humanity lives in that state. Not only ego, but their physical state. So it's a double negative in a way. Not only do you think that you're a physical body, but you think you're your ego, this temporary creation of the mind. What you find out quickly, you're blasted out of that state. Not only do you realize suddenly that you're standing next to your body, that, oh my God, I'm certainly not my body. So what am I? Am I my mind? And then through out-of-body experience, you begin to realize that, wow, I'm more than my mind. My mind is also a tool of consciousness. It's like a hard drive that I'm using. It's not me. There's a part of me that exists beyond the mind. I'm not my mind. I'm something much more expansive than that.
Universe answers the questing soul, but it also answers the fearful soul. There seems to be a sort of relationship between our fear and these events happening.
Our thoughts are manifesting all the time our reality. Unfortunately, people are disconnected from it. Think of everything in your life. Every physical thing, the predecessor to everything around us was a thought. But unfortunately, people don't track the cause and effect in their lives. And they just feel, oh, it's just matter manifesting around me. And it's not like that at all. There is an energetic cause and effect constantly at work around us. But you have to begin to tune into it. You have to begin to become sensitive to the own thought projections that you have. Each of us is a beacon projecting out thought energy, and this thought energy is creative.
As we're losing our spiritual compass, it seems we're becoming more beset by natural forces. As man is thinking of himself in the Dawkins terms as a sort of genetic phenomenon, as we're losing the magnitude of man as man in touch with the universe, as we're losing that, as we're blinding ourselves to it, I think we are becoming victims of nature in direct proportion to the despiritualization of our minds. In the world of the mass media today, this is a very dangerous phenomenon.
That is the reality that is discussed only in very narrow quarters, yet it's the reality we face. People don't understand what energy is, nor do they really understand where it comes from, how it functions. People's aspiration is business as usual, but that's just an aspiration.
What is the internet but one vast rumor network? That the internet is becoming kind of fear machine and reflecting our fears as well as our hopes. We've got to watch this. We lose the balance, we lose the wisdom, and we start reacting to things. We're going to be in deep trouble.
We create 40,000 thoughts a day, and these thoughts are creating an energy field around us. And that field has an impact on matter. And the problem is that people don't recognize it, and a lot of people are surrounding themselves, saturating themselves with a negative field of energy.
If you want a nightmare, just watch the news, but nobody calls that black magic.
I feel that we're each on an individual journey, number one, and that we're each learning our own lessons. And unfortunately, the Earth is a result of a consensus of 7 billion souls. It's a disconnect from our true self.
This is why they covered their weapons in these magical symbols, these runes. This is why they saw it as one as the same thing. There was no difference, that these were not just weapons of war, but they were also weapons of witchcraft.
Science isn't everything and science isn't nothing. I mean, science is one way of grasping hold of our experience. I don't believe it's the only way.
Imagine there's been some kind of apocalypse, some kind of doomsday event. How could you actually start rebuilding a civilization from scratch? How could you reboot a civilization all over again?
What we are, each one of us, is a partial reflection of the whole. And even though we have a limited time span, the whole continues.
The financial system being the most fragile of all the major systems that we depend on for everyday life, it seems to be the case that the failure of the financial system will be the first really big thing that leads us into this long emergency.
We all start at that spot when we're young because we all want to know what's out there. Is it what I'm taught in church? Is it out of a book? Is that the truth of the matter, or is there something more? All those questions that we had as kids, they spark curiosity. They tell you that's God calling you to himself. And that's that curiosity, that God-shaped vacuum in our hearts that we all have that we need to fill with only God, but we try to fill with everything else. I've heard it said there is a consciousness, common consciousness in human beings. There is that void, that gap that lies within our consciousness somewhere that's been either erased, somehow eradicated, removed, or covered up. And is there a coded message there that we need to follow? It's a greater story that seems to be an encoded message. If you start digging deeper, you're going to find that there is actually encoded information there that means something far greater than the cover story.
Why are we here? Where do we come from? Where are we going? LegalizeFreedom.com